Good evening, people. I hope you're all well. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the channel. It's got cold, people, which is why all of our hats are on, because it is freezing. Well, Sean has hat on every time, to be fair, but me and Lee have got our hats on. It's not every day of late that Judges has his hat on, but my God, Lee, it's cold, man.
I say I was just saying a bit off air. I've just put the heating on, it's like the last few days. It's got like really nippy. Do you know what? Since the old clocks have gone back, it's just a gentle reminder that winter's coming, and it just catches up on you really quick, And it's all right during the day. I don't think it was that cold during the day, but it just drops at night now, doesn't it? So winter's here, boys. Winter's here.
Yeah, winter is here. How you doing, Sean? You good, bro?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Just lamenting the fact that I've got a 3-hour journey up to Wolves tomorrow to watch us probably get ripped apart by Wolves. And just our team's torn apart for a variety of reasons. And I've got a long early start and a long day. So it is what it is. But yeah, thanks for inviting me back, and it's good to see you guys.
No, it's all good. Henry may be with us. He may not be with us. He's working and he can't get off. He's had a late one tonight. So I said, join us if you can. So we'll go easy on you, Sean, since it's 2v1. But we're going to start with Tottenham because the news has hit. The news has basically hit, Sean, that I think everyone was expecting at some stage. I just thought, as Tottenham fans, you probably didn't want it to be this early. But Maddison out, Van de Ven out, Romero suspended, Udogie suspended, and a couple more. Talk to me through your team news, man, because at the moment it looks like Tottenham are a little bit depleted.
Yeah, to throw in more than that, Ben Davies is still out. Pedro Porro, who was going to be our only, like the one member of our first team defensive line, he's apparently a late fitness test, so he might be out as well. And you've still got the long termers in Manor Solomon and Perisic. We've got no recognised left-sided player. Richarlison's out as well. He just had surgery. We've gone from feast to famine. We've sort of got away with, our injuries being predominantly. We've had all of our injuries this year have been like long-termers as well, which is a kicker. Most of the injuries, if you get one week here, 2 weeks there, you can kind of ride it. But when they're all 4 months, it's terrible. And losing Maddison. And I just think back, right? Everything was going well for Tottenham. And in that 5-minute spell, the entire season fell apart. We were 1-0 up. We could have been 2-0 up if it wasn't for Sonny's, toenail or whatever that was offside. And then within 5 minutes, you're going down to 10 men. You lose Romero for 3 games. You give away a penalty. You give away the goal. You lose Maddison and you lose Van de Ven out until the end of January. All the hopes are dashed now. Look, it depends on, as a Tottenham fan, depends on how quickly you reset your expectations around what might be possible. I didn't really. I was always sort of hopeful that European finish would be enough. So I'm okay with it. Like, it is what it is. There's no point in lamenting or getting sort of too wound up about it. But yeah, in terms of injuries, it's pretty much as bad as it gets. And on top of that, you've got Bissouma, who's 1 game away from a yellow card ban. Pape Sarr, who's 2 games away from a yellow card ban. And the same for someone else, Kulusevski, I think. So there might be more trouble around the corner with regards availability for Villa next week and Manchester City. So yeah, it's not good. Not good at the moment.
No, it ain't good at all. Before I come to Lee, big up Nando in the chat. Says, finally catch down live again. Big up, Pot. It's been a while. My grandmother passed away, so not been on social media and internet a lot. Really sorry for your loss, Nando. Big up and thanks so much for coming back and supporting the channel. I hope that you and the family are all good. So send lots of love to yourself. Lee, let's talk about Spurs quickly because it is a news that we didn't want as far as Tottenham are concerned, but I kind of thought that they were a couple of injuries away from being in a bit of trouble, but I didn't expect them all to be at the same time. I suppose we better talk about the Monday night because that was crazy. I mean, I've never seen a game like that in a long time. Had everything in it in terms of red cards, VAR goals, offside goals, goals galore at one stage of the game. And everybody's pointing towards Ange Postecoglou's tactics in that when they went down to 9 men, just playing with that high line. And I think a lot of people were saying that if that was Man City, it could have been about 8 or 9-1 because Chelsea, I mean, I know they were giving it and getting excited, but I'd have been quite embarrassed if some of them Chelsea fans really, that wasn't more than 4 because they were a bit of a shambles in my opinion as well. So Crazy game, Lee, but one that I suppose you enjoyed, bruv, on a Monday night.
Well, I did. After what happened at the weekend, I needed a big lift, and thank you Tottenham Hotspur a lot. But it actually didn't look like it was going to be. I thought, well, I did think that Spurs would win it. I did say that I think Chelsea were a poor side, and even though they've won 4-1, I still say that they're a poor side. So that's just unreal. But I thought, well, I'll watch it. First 10 minutes, I thought, oh my God, this Spurs team is a real deal. I really did. I was, really impressed with the way they were knocking it about. And I think the linesman give the offside, didn't he? So if there weren't VAR, I think it would have still been offside. But it was bloody close, that Song one from. Listen, if they go 2-0 up, they win the game. It's as simple as that. That's how fine those margins are. And then, I'm looking at it, I think, I'll give it another couple of minutes and then I'm going to turn it off because there's just one side in it. Then I see the doggy tackle. I don't know how he stayed on for that. I really don't. 2-foot tackle is outlawed even in my day, and it's funny, like 20 years ago, he'd have been sent off and Romero would have stayed on, Romero would have stayed on, because in my day that was a good tackle, but that's another story. Anyway, then I thought for once that incident happened, and I think a lot of people have sort of missed this really, like Chelsea were bloody good up until half time. They looked the better side. I don't really know what happened from Tottenham's point of view. And then, like the goal disallowed, and then the Caicedo goal, which I think again probably, looking at it, should probably be given. But then, then they go back and then go back to the sending off. Listen, people who can turn around and say it's not a sending off or it is a sending off. Nowadays it is. You know what I mean? Like it's just whether you agree with it or not. He's won the ball. And I was taught as a young age, like the harder you go in, the more chance you've not got to get hurt. That's how I was taught. When I was at a professional club, that's exactly what they said to you. The harder you go in, make sure, when I was being taught to tackle, don't shirk a tackle, don't leave your foot in there and whatever like. But anyway, that's the game's changed. The game's changed. We know it has. Whether it's for the best, I'm not so sure. Now, when you look at it, and I'm going to be really honest about this, it was actually sent off because he's endangering the player and whatever. Well, what was the doggy one doing then? If that's not endangering the player, you know what I mean? So I don't know where they get these rules from and everything like that. But that's how it is. Gets a penalty. Oh, and the goalkeeper was so close to it. By the way, what a brilliant performance he had the other night. I know,
unbelievable.
Sort of off the radar signing he was, but I've been really, really impressed with him. He made a very, very good save just before that. Was it from Sterling? I can't remember who it was from when he went on the left-hand side. Made a very, very good save. Very nearly got to the penalty as well.
Cucurella, I think there was one as well, wasn't there?
Yeah. In the second half. I just think that he's just a really, really good goalkeeper. He's made very, very good saves. Whenever I've seen him play, he's done some fantastic work in the sticks there, and all credit to that signing. When it goes 1-1 and the sending off, I think you have to look at Romero now. Whether you think he's a good centre, he is a liability. I don't know how Spurs fans feel about that, but I just think that he's an accident waiting to happen at this moment in time, and that's how I feel about that. So quite rightly sent off in the current rules. And then I still think at the end of the day, I don't think that the game was over there. I think that Tottenham maybe are still in it. And then, they come out second half and just, listen, they got caught out. And if Sterling plays properly there, they probably, 3 against 2, he should do it. But he messes up and then he sort of draws a tackle and, I know that they turn around and say to you you can't sort of make that tackle when you're on a booking, but it's desperate because there was 3 against 2. Anyway, he gets sent off and then the game's over. Or you would predict that it's over, but I don't think Chelsea were very, very comfortable until 3-1. I really do. At 2-1,
it took them like 15 minutes to
to work out what was going
figure out
on.
what was going on, because I think
Yeah.
everyone was like, "Huh?" I was in the stands going, "Wait, what? What?
I
Why,
know,
are we,
yeah.
why are we doing? Why are we using the halfway line as an offside trap? What's going on here? It's a madness." You know?
It was a madness, but you know, Tottenham was still in it. Whether that's down to the fault of Chelsea or the tactics, I don't know. I rather think that a little bit of both. I think Chelsea, you know what I mean, like professional footballers took them a bit of time to work that out. And then when the Dyer scores the goal, you know, watching it on TV, you say, "Oh, well, it's a mile offside. Mile offside. Ain't even a worry." Well, then it sort of starts taking your time. And then when it actually was offside, it wasn't a lot in it. It was not a lot in it, like, you know.
Well, if it had it grazed Bentancur's head, and then it hits the defender's head behind it. If it doesn't graze Bentancur's head, then it's a defensive header, so he's not offside, right? It's only because it hits his head just first that then apparently it's like a non-committed or an accidental header, so then it still counts. But if Bentancur ducks rather than puts his head up, you know, we're back in the game.
Yeah, and so, you know, and then realistically, from a Tottenham point of view, it weren't until Chelsea got the third goal that it was game over, like, you know, and so a little bit of credit has to be said for Spurs from the players. I'm not buying into all this like Tottenham fans, cut them on, mate. Oh, magnificent 9 and all that, like, oh, yeah. There was a time that it was 10, and there was a time that it was 11. You know what I mean, and things like that, and. But at the end of the day, I don't think, even though Spurs lost that game, it didn't come out with any disgrace in losing the game. I think that's something that if I was a Spurs fan, I'd take from it, like, you know. And the thing is, they've only got themselves to blame, with Spurs. I think if they was disciplined enough, they would have beaten Chelsea. I think Chelsea would put a poor side. I have to say that.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
You know what, Lee, though? I just like all week, right? I've been putting out content on my channel. And like, I initially was like, it's such a stupid tactic. Like, come on, park the bus. I understand that, you know, we never stop. It's not part of the DNA. It's not what Angeball is. I get it. But, you know, it's 9 times out of 10, Chelsea could have put 8 past us and we finished 8-1. But then I just getting like heckles from the Tottenham fans going, "No, come on, you're not buying into Angeball." And then I listened to someone else try to explain the tactic. I'm not a coach, so I don't really, you know, not an expert on this stuff, but I watched people that explained it, you know, by compressing the game, you're still in it, and you wouldn't be in it if you're parking the bus, and you're only ever hanging on. Whereas Tottenham can actually go and we had the chances to get more out of the game. But the division in the fan base is a madness. And when Ange comes out afterwards and says, the commentator or the interviewer says, you know, what was that about? He said, "Oh, it's just who we are. We could go down to 5 men and we'd still have a go." And that kind of like celebrates his style. And I think a lot of Tottenham fans, and I'm trying to get on board it. I am trying to get on board it. I'm trying to get behind that kind of vision. But ultimately, what I'd like to think is that if Tottenham were 2-0 up, which we could have been, if the Sonny thing was an inch, you know, back or whatever, and the same scenario plays out, and as much as Udogie still gets sent off and Romero gets sent off, do Tottenham still park themselves on the halfway line with 9 men when you're trying to defend and trying to hold on to 3 points? I don't know. Like, I don't really understand the logic, and I don't know if the Tottenham fans that are so behind it, so in awe of the have a go approach, like, it's different. You know, is the vision, is the kind of the philosophy that he's trying to instill in the players and all that, is that worth sacrificing a point for the long-term philosophy of the football club and think maybe? But if you're holding on to 3 points and you do the same thing, at what point does it become silly? You know,
that's a great point, and I honestly think, and I'm going to stick up for him a little bit here, like, he would have been mad to do that against an Arsenal or a Man City or even a Liverpool. Like, but I think he looked at it and thought, like, this team ain't that bloody good. Like, do you know what I mean? So I'll do it, like, you know. I think if you do that against City, they get 10.
Yeah,
they get 10. You know what I mean? Like, but I think he looked at it and thought, do you know what? We might as well have a go. Like, looked at the opposition. Say if you go to Man City in a couple of weeks, right, and you lose a man to get someone sent off. He's put himself in a little position now because there are people that expect him to go. He won't. You know what I mean? You sit in there and hope to see what you get, because they getting like, you'd rather take a 1-0 defeat, 2-0 defeat than being pumped 7-8-9. Now, at the end of it there, Tottenham really, I honestly think that they looked at it and thought like, well, Chelsea, we're not taking liberties, but I don't think that they was great. And listen, let's be honest about it. It took them, the professional footballers, by the way, 20 minutes to work it out that you got to run from deep. Like, so I do think that he looked at it and just said, you know what, if we sit back, we're going to lose. If we go this way, we've got a chance. I think that's the case scenario that he looked at. I don't think if you go to Anfield or even like a top team, if you've done that Aston Villa come along,
you don't do that.
You don't do that, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't, he's come out and said that, like, but if you was to lose a couple of players, listen, at the moment Spurs can tolerate what is going on, but say if they was to lose a few games, and then you come to White Hart Lane and say it's Arsenal, and you do that, and you end up getting pumped, you won't accept that. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like, so that. But I understand why he done it and the opposition he done it. And I'll tell you what, I remember a couple of seasons ago, Dan, do you remember we was 1-0 down to Aston Villa?
Oh, yeah.
With 10 men and come back and won with Aubameyang in that was like 2-0 down and ended up coming back and winning 3-2. It can be done. It ain't the end, because you do lose a player, So, listen, credit where credit's due from that point of view. But I guarantee you he won't be doing that every single game.
But he didn't do it against Luton. When we went to Luton a few weeks back, it was 0-0 and we went down to 10 men, and he didn't make us move further up the pitch. No. We carried on and we ended up winning the game 1-0. So it was a very specific tactic for that specific scenario. Yeah. And I think you're right. It must be down to the fact that he thought, down to 9, it's unlikely you're going to get a point, or something's going to happen either way if you sit back or if you go for it. And against this team at home, you might as well go for it.
Exactly that, and against a team that that he'll be sitting there afterwards going, that you should beat, and I think that's the thing that a lot of Tottenham fans that I've spoken to a little bit. And not annoyed, I think, is that just looking at it as a missed opportunity because I know that Chelsea were there for the taking. And they didn't actually.
My frustration is entirely with Romero and Udogie. Everyone thinks Romero's like a loose cannon, and he definitely is. I'll be honest. I've been watching Udogie, and I think he's been the best left back in the Premier League this season. But he's starting to emerge to me because he's young, and because of what he's been asked to play in this inverted fullback role, where he's got to come back and cover a lot of space. He's also got a little bit of a reckless. Like he's just, I don't know, the thoughts going through his head. It's not calm or whatever, because I think there's going to be red cards for him in the future as well, unless he can.
Do you kind of understand that a bit more with him, though, Sean? Because he's a bit more raw. He's young. He's come to the Premier League. Romero just can't help himself, man. Like, I was speaking to Tobes yesterday or day before. Like, it reminds me of David Luiz, not in terms of the quality, but the actual like ticking time bomb. Like, can't help himself. Like, always has to make that tackle. Always has to do that dirty, and you just know it's going to happen. And I said to Tottenham fans, right, Romero's a good defender, by the way. I think he's an excellent defender, but he needs a calming presence alongside him. Otherwise, he's absolute nutter. And you've started to see now with Van de Ven, the calming presence alongside him, that's a good partnership, and that Romero's definitely improved, in my opinion, anyway, in the first few games of this season. Than he has in the last. But I just think you're going to have one of those bozos in your side, mate, that's always going to get sent off. I don't know what more you can do to try and calm this guy down.
I was talking to Henry about this last night. If Tottenham, and this is hypothetical, he said to me, would you swap right now, no money, would you swap Romero for an Edmund Tapsoba from Leverkusen, who was one of the players we were linked with throughout the summer? And I probably would, because I do think there's a £60 million player in Romero. I think someone somewhere would pay that money. But I think that, I think Lee was saying it earlier, the way the game has moved into a soft touch, like he's an old school defender that, 15, 20 years ago, playing in the sort of Kevin Keegan era, that kind of thing, he might have been able to get away with it. But I think he's just got that loose cannon where he wants to hurt players and wants to go through them. That's probably the way he's grown up in South America. And I think that it's going to hurt us, and especially if the only reason he was calming down this year was because he had a calming presence in Van de Ven. Van de Ven's now out until late Jan. We're going to have to play 12 games, even though he's missing the next 3. When he comes back, he's going to have to do the next 9 with Eric Dyer next to him or whoever else. and that reminds me of much of last season when Romero was a reckless lunatic. So, yeah, I agree with you guys. Like it's a real shame. I thought he'd matured, but maybe not.
That's the worst one. That Van der Ven one. That's a massive loss. That is, and yeah. I think like that's a he'd be lucky if he doesn't have to have surgery with that, like because as hamstring injuries go, that can't be no worse.
I felt that, Lee. You've played football. I felt that when it happened. I thought, I actually went out because like when you can relate, can't you? When it's happened to you at football before, when you've had your hamstring go. Like I think most people that played football have probably had that. I looked at that and I thought, that's going to work. Like that is seriously going to work. And you could tell it was a bad one, couldn't you? It weren't like, he'll be all right.
Horrendous. I was lucky through football. I only had one hamstring injury once, and it was like you could slightly feel it, and like as soon as I slightly felt it, that was it. I was off 3 weeks before I come back. That's just a strain. This is a real tear. I remember Aaron Ramsey doing it when he was in his feet, and he was out for 3 months. You know what I mean? Like it was. It
goes again though, Lee, as well, right? Any player, and it's most often seen in wide men who are young who get a hamstring injury. It's not the only time it happens. Once it goes once, especially for a player that relies on your pace, it goes again and again and again. So I fear that Van der Ven, he might be out for 3 months this season, but I think it's something that we're going to see. Once it goes once, because he's a pace merchant, right? That's what gets him out of trouble is his speed. But if he can't now drop into that final gear for fear of his hammy going, same thing you've seen with Deki Kulusevski. He was never blessed with pace, but in his first season for Tottenham, he had a bit of a third or fourth gear, and then his hamstring went at the start of last season. He was rushed back. It went again. He was rushed back. It went again. And now he doesn't drop into that final gear because he doesn't want it to go again. So it's a little bit kind of in your head as well,
Yeah. And unfortunately, as a defender, you can't, like with a forward, you can sort of go through the gears, if you know what I mean. But if you're a defender and you're caught, or not necessarily caught, the ball's over the top, you can't sort of go, I'll go. I won't go into that fourth gear. You have to go into it, like he did in the game. He had to go for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that did look a real bad one for me. Like So
yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was. Sean, go through your team tomorrow then, because I have no idea now. You got Maddison out, which I think is unbelievably. Oh, mate, he is.
That was always a bad one, by the way, because no one touched him. When no one's around you. It's a very strange injury, that, wasn't it? I don't really know what he's done there. They've not really said what he's done.
I think he was nursing it. He's been nursing it. So for the last 4, 5, 6 games, basically for most of the season, he's been being substituted in the 60th minute with Sonny to nurse these injuries. That's the other thing. Like Sonny's playing, I'm sure Sonny's playing injured. I think he himself is also the upside. He's also nursing the groin strain as well. So if he goes down, then Tottenham are completely gone. But as far as Maddison, nothing happened to him. But I think his ankle, something happened in his ligaments in his ankle. He comes off at the same time as Van der Ven. He has the scan, and it's worse than feared. And he's done some damage to it. So he's out until January as well. So yeah, not only are we completely depleted defensively, but he was 70% of the things that we were doing creatively, especially in tight games, he was responsible for. So the terms of the 11, I think Vicario is going to be starting. If Pedro Porro passes the fitness test, then it will be Porro at right back. Centre backs will be Eric Dyer and probably Ash Phillips, who's the England under-18 international we signed from Blackburn. Who's a big guy. He's 6'3". He's 18 years old, but he's never played for Tottenham. He's only played in the under-21s. So I don't know what we're dealing with there. But physically, he's got it. Just whether he's got it mentally and technically, I don't know. And then, so Eric Dyer, him. And then on the left would be Emerson Royale, who's going to be shoehorned over to the left. And then midfield, we're still okay. I think will probably be Yves Bissouma, Pape Sarr. And then depending on what he wants to do, the likely scenario is he'll play Bentancur in the 10. And he's only just come back, but we don't know if he's ready for 90 minutes. And then if that is the case, then at the front, it will be probably Brennan Johnson on the left, Deki on the right, Kulusevski on the right, and Sonny up top. But if they don't want to risk Bentancur, then they might move Kulusevski into the 10, play Brennan Johnson on the right and Brian Hill on the left, and then Sonny up the top. But yeah, it's bare bones, and the bench will look. I mean, I don't know what. I think we're going to have to promote 3 players from the bench to be from the youth team, to be honest, to make up the numbers. Scary,
Mate. That is depleted. I mean, that is serious. That back line is wow. That is a serious ask. And I don't know what Ash Phillips is like. I've not heard of him. I'm not going to pretend I do. I'm sure that he's promising, like they always have 1 or 2 at the club, but that's a big call. Wolves are a good side. Your midfield's okay, to be honest.
yeah.
I think Bissouma, Bentancur and Sarr or Lo Celso, wherever you have to bring in if you have to. I think Brennan Johnson is a guy that could probably actually do a lot more than people are giving him credit for. I think he's
Same.
the one that I would look at in your front line and go, yeah, you've got a chance here now. But yeah, I think defensively, Wolves are going to have some fun potentially anyway.
If Neto was fully fit,
oh yeah,
I would be. I mean, 100%. Not that I would do this, but if I'm recommending it to anyone else who likes side interests, I won't say the word. 'Cause I know it's bad for your for the algorithm, but you put some of the spare cash on a Wolves success. However, without him there, I think the danger man is obviously. I think Ait Nouri for Wolves down the left is a really tricky player, and obviously Hwang, who scores. I think he scored the most. I think he scored more goals at home than any other player in Europe this season. I think.
Well, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, though. Like people are already saying,
No, I still think Tottenham. I actually think Tottenham will still do all right because
I don't think that this is the one. I think that's a good enough team to get something. It's the games when you play Aston Villa, Manchester City, like those sort of games. That's when it's gonna.
Well, Villa's up next, yeah.
Yeah, that you got when you need your squad and things like that. For me, I think is a little bit more of a concern. Wolves is not an easy place to go to. Don't get me wrong, but it's not one of those places where you're going to go there and totally dominate the ball anyway. I think you're going to have to defend well and hit them on the break. And you've still got players that can do damage on the break.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Sean, your next fixtures, you got Wolves at away, Villa at home, City away, West Ham at home, Newcastle at home. That's a tough run, mate.
Yep. Yeah, and it doesn't get much easier. It doesn't get much easier in December, like into late December as well. We've gone through the easiest part of the season in terms of like the teams we played. 80% of our games have been against teams in the bottom, not just the bottom half, but like the bottom 6 or 7. And then now we're starting to come up against the teams that are mid-table and up, and we've got no one around to help us out. So look, it's gonna listen. I'm always someone who's glass half full. I'll just run with the punches and sort of see what happens. But I do fear that Tottenham will drop back down the table to 6th or 7th or whatever by the time that we get through the Christmas period, and that's okay because I'm just glad. I'm grateful for the start that we've had. That's given us a bit of a buffer zone going into this tough fixtures. But because it's not just not the players out, but like I said at the start, we've got 2 or 3 really key players that are only 1 yellow card away or 2 yellow cards away from missing games as well. So,
and also they've got that December. I know, it's always lots of games in December as well. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a midweek batch of fixtures at the beginning of it. Then you got the Christmas for. You don't need to have a weakened squad going into those sort of games. Quick and like a quick turnaround, So it's going to be a tough month for Spurs in that way. But sometimes it can work for you, and all right, let's dig in and do something. I don't know, what I mean. This is where the test is gonna say to Spurs. I think that West Ham's the midweek game. I think, if I be honest,
West Ham's on the Thursday and then Newcastle's on the Sunday. I think,
Sunday. So was it Aston Villa then? Aston Villa, is it Aston Villa?
Yeah. So Wolves tomorrow. Then we've got the international break. Then Villa at home. Then City away. Then it's West Ham on the Thursday, then Newcastle on the Sunday.
So those 3 fixtures in 7 days, and West Ham, like the rivalry between West Ham and Tottenham as well. That's a tough week. That's
they'll be licking their lips. They'll
7 days.
Well, then you got Forest, Everton, and Brighton, which you'd like to think you could get pick up some results. Brighton ain't going to be easy. Forest are never an easy place to go. So, listen, this is Premier League. You know what I mean? Every single game you walk into, you're not expected to win. But what I will say is that you've got a tough run of fixtures for the players you've got out. I think if Tottenham had a fully fit squad, you wouldn't be looking at these fixtures and going, oh, God, oh, God, oh, God, because you'd fancy your chances against a lot of them. But because of the injuries you've got now, I think now that's why everyone's looking at these fixtures now going, oh, no, this is like the worst time for Spurs. And I always felt your squad depth was like pretty paper thin, but I expected maybe one or two to get injured, but you've got a lot of players out now. And it's like, whoa, all at once. I thought maybe if you got Maddison, I'd be like, oh, yeah, Maddison will be missed. But to have Van de Ven and Maddison, let's be real, your two best players this year, in my opinion, anyway, both out. It's mad. It really is. And I wanted to ask you just lastly, Sean, before we move on from Spurs, because to a couple of podcasts the other day, and I think Savile was on and a few others were on talking about Tottenham, and we're sort of saying, Tottenham ain't really been that good this year. They ain't really played anyone yet. They were lucky against Luton, lucky against Sheffield United. Everyone's beating Man United. Played all right against Arsenal, but still couldn't beat them. Was shocking against Liverpool, but picked up the win. That kind of stuff. Do you think that's a bit harsh on Tottenham?
Yeah, I do. I do think that's. I think we were the massively better team than against Sheffield United. And like, I'm not someone that sits there and thinks because you score late, that's somehow luck. I think that there's 90 minutes in the game, and the goal for me, if it's scored in the first minute, is as valuable or it's less valuable, whatever, than it is in the 90th minute. I think that Tottenham deserved to win that game. I think Tottenham could have been 4-0 up, 3-0 up against Luton, on a different day if Richarlison had could finish his dinner. I think most of the games that we played in, we've been the better team. The only games I can think of where Tottenham were outclassed but got away with something. I mean, Liverpool probably before the whole game went to a madness. I think that you could probably make the argument that Liverpool played better. I think the Arsenal game was 50-50 for most of it. I think Man United started better against Tottenham, but in the rest, I think Tottenham have been the better team, and it just might have taken us a bit of time to break down the low block. And I was of the opinion that Tottenham's team, the structure, the squad that we have, will do better against teams that come out and play against us. And we're about to run into those fixtures, but now we're never going to know how a full strength team would have done against them in the first place, because we don't have that. We don't have that kind of luxury now. So we're going to have to see how, if you could reverse the situation and say, would you rather have missed the players we now miss for the low block teams, whatever? I'd rather have that happen and then play the stronger team against the teams that come out and play against you. But it is what it is. I don't think Tottenham have been spectacular, but then I think you can make the same argument for every team. I don't think Man City have been spectacular. I don't think Arsenal, Liverpool. I don't think any team's been absolutely spectacular. But I think that's a testament to how close the league is in terms of there's no such thing really. There's maybe a couple of examples, Sheffield United maybe, and whatever. But there's from about 15th to first, the gap is tighter than ever in terms of the ability for games to be on a knife edge. So I don't subscribe to the idea that Tottenham have been lucky to be where we are. I think that it's taken us a bit of time to figure out low blocks, but we're a new team that has to do that. Teams like Arsenal and City and Liverpool, have to face that kind of challenge and have had to face that challenge for years. Most teams sit in against you and you have to break them down. Tottenham haven't really gone through that, but we're starting to, become a team that other teams are scared of, or we were. So I don't know if that summarizes it.
Totally agree, Sean. That first 15 minutes against Chelsea, that was good as what I've seen any team this season. They were really knocking the ball about, some really crisp passing. If the goal for Song stands, everybody will be turning around and saying what a great movement it was. They scored a great goal. Was it against Palace with a team movement? I didn't play well against Palace, but sometimes I also have to think that the opposition don't allow you to play well. So you have to get the job done. And even when I look back at Arsenal last season, and was fantastic as we were, there were times when we didn't play that well and got the result. For instance, Leeds away was one. Aston Villa at home was another one. Fulham at home was another one. But because you then go away and beat a team 3-0 or whatever, people don't forget about those sort of performances. If you look at a run of games, you'll see a couple of 1-0s in there, even from Manchester City, and everything. But I don't know why teams want to analyse those sort of things. If you're on a 10 game winning run, enjoy it. You know what I mean? I know last season I wasn't worried about when we struggled at Leeds. I was just pleased we won the game and move on to the next one. And I think that, you know, like Spurs have not done well in the last couple of games. But listen, they've gone to Burnley and got 5 goals at Burnley. You know, breezed past Bournemouth. Now, teams will say that you should do that. But not everybody does it. So, like, you know, enjoy it while you can.
Also, you know, I think people are forgetting that Ange Ball, whatever you want to call it, I hate saying it, but Ange Ball is only 10, 11, 12 games old, you know. And if you look at his history as a manager, you go back to when he was playing for Yokohama, same at Celtic, same for Brisbane Roar. The first 6 months of his tenure in all of those clubs was the worst. Right? It took a long time for his system to be embedded and take the teams from where they were to where they ended up, which was always at the top. It's a different challenge.
On that point, Sean, do you think that we might learn more from him now without these players? Because, like, I'm not saying it's his team, because a lot of it isn't. You know, he has made some great signings, but it's probably wrong to say we'll really find out what Ange is about now, because I think we've already seen some of what he's about. But I think this is a big test for Ange Postecoglou now. And I think you'll see how good of a manager he is with players that aren't first teamers now coming in.
Yeah, and it's a shame, because I feel like, you know, the expectation around him, the hype around him, not just from Tottenham fans, but I think from the media as well, has got a little bit hyperbolic. And I think that it's well ahead of where it should be. I'm someone who's just enjoyed the first 10 games, and I'll always remember this first 10 games of the season as being like, what an amazing, you know, enjoyable thing to have gone through. But I think we're going to come back down to earth pretty rapidly now. I don't know the history of Ange well enough to know whether he has ever had to face such a catastrophic blow to his resources, if you like, and how he's handled it. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't, but I think it would test the very best, right? Even if Pep Guardiola or Arsene Wenger or Sir Alex Ferguson, whoever back in the day, if they had lost 6 or 7 of their first teamers, you know, to be able to rally through that and still get some sort of juice from the squeeze, I think I'm not sure if anyone could or can. We'll find out. But look, for me personally, I've just really enjoyed it, what's happened. I'll take whatever comes. I don't expect it to be that pretty. I think it's going to be painful for a lot of Tottenham fans, but I hope that Daniel Levy can do what he doesn't usually do, which is step up in January. But ultimately, I want us to, you know, to get through whatever happens this season. But next season, for me, will be when I think he should really be, you know, judged on merit. Right now, I think there's it could be new manager bounce. It could be the unfamiliarity to his system. It's pretty unique. So, I think people have gone too far. The pendulum has swung too far to he's amazing. He's excellent. It's just breath of fresh air. And probably if we go through a really tough run of results now, the pendulum will swing all the way back and people will start saying it was a fraud, he's a fraud, or the whole thing's a joke. And, you know, it's just the way that human nature works. But I'd rather stay smack bang in the middle and just enjoy it and see what happens. And next season, I'll judge him when we're fully baked into the Ange Ball methodology.
It is so, like, extreme, isn't it, Lee? Like, I was hearing like only last week, God, Tottenham could get third, you know. Tottenham could get third. And then we hear Maddison and Van der Ven say, oh, that's it. They're not going to make Champions League now. And you think, wow, how can it be that extreme? They haven't even kicked a ball yet and they're not going to make Champions League. It's very, very, football's a funny game, man. But I still think Tottenham will win at the weekend. I actually do. I still think
I wouldn't back against them. And, you know, listen, most Spurs fans, like Henry, you know, who isn't here today, has always been saying his fears if anything happens to Maddison and Van der Ven. I think Sean probably has alluded to that as well. You know, we had it last season when we lost Saliba. Like, you know, it's a massive, massive blow. You don't realise how big of the blows these are until it happens. And it's all right saying, "All right, yeah, go and buy someone," you know, but you know, you try and find a Saliba or a Van der Ven or a Maddison. They're not about, you know what I mean? So when you lose them, it's tough. You know, I will say with Maddison, the one thing I've always said that with Maddison, big admirer of his, but always was wary of the injury record over him. You know, and that's why I did say, that's why he's probably gone for 40 million because of that. But sometimes you have to take a gamble and see how it is, you know. And listen, he could come back and still make a major contribution to Tottenham. What Tottenham have got to do now is forget about Ange Ball and let's just keep ourselves competitive until they come back. And we done that last season, Dan, when we lost Jesus. You know what I mean? We had like Jesus out for 3 months when we was flying. You know what I mean? Like that was a massive blow to us last season. Eddie come in, and I know he gets criticism, but he stepped up, and that's what Spurs are going to have to do now. They're going to, have to find a couple of players now that are going to have to step up and do that. Listen, if they don't, just keep themselves involved in it, as Sean says. You know what I mean? It's the same with Arsenal. We didn't think we was going to win the league last season. Certainly when Saliba went down, we didn't. But we got where we wanted to. In the end, we aimed high and we got into the top 4. And I think that's what Tottenham will do. I think if at the end of the day, before this season kicks a ball, if you said to Tottenham, you'll come 4th or 5th.
Oh, like your hand off.
Fans would have said, yeah, they have that. So they're not off the.
I would have bitten your hand off for Europa League, mate. Lee, if I'm honest, at the start of the season, Europa League, lovely jubbly,
Yeah. So I don't think it's time to panic and all that at this moment in time. And listen, I'm going to be really honest with you. Wolves are a funny old side. Even if you had your best team, there's not going to guarantee you're going to go there and win. You know what I mean? Like at the end of it, you'd feel you're in a much better position, yes, if all those players were available. But, in the last couple of games with all those players, you've had Luton away from home and Crystal Palace, and you've just got through those games, which is what you expected Tottenham to have done. So there's no guarantee that it's going to get a spectacular performance. But what this might do now is just give everybody that little bit, we're sharpen our pencils now and make sure that we haven't got to rely on Maddison now. We haven't got to rely on the bit. We've all got to step up and defend. Sometimes it ain't a bad thing. So I'm with you on this. I don't say a lot of people saying, "Oh, that's it." Look, listen, if Wolves were to win tomorrow, I wouldn't be. Oh, it's a shock. But on the other hand, if Spurs win it, I would turn around and say, "Yeah, I'm not surprised neither."
Me neither, mate. Yeah. I actually let's go predictions quickly because we do normally.
4-0 to Wolves.
With all that said, 4-0 Wolves.
I'm going 2-0. I'm going 2-1 Spurs. I think Spurs will win it 2-1. What are you saying, Sean?
Well, the things I've done on certain apps, I've had draw no bets. Right, so I put money on certain outcomes, but I actually think that the smart money probably is 1-1. But listen, I'm always going to lean into Tottenham. The front line have got to step up. The front line have got to step up. But yeah, I think just because of the situation, I'm going to say 1-1.
Interesting. Judges?
I'm going 2-2.
Okay. Interesting. Both think the Spurs will drop points. I tell you what, if Wolves get done over by VAR again, then they're probably going to just come out of the league, aren't they? Because that's like 5 times now that they've been screwed over. It's mad, it really is. But big up Gary O'Neill, by the way, because I think he's taken over Wolves and he's done a very good job. Yeah. Bournemouth are looking at that thinking, did we do the right thing getting this new guy in? Because they look like they're struggling in comparison to Gary O'Neill at Wolves. But, that's another story. Let's move to Arsenal because it is going to be similar injuries again, judges. I've got to start with him, and this feels like deja vu to what we were speaking about only a few weeks ago. I was at the game, I know you were as well, the other night against Seville, and I saw Trossard and Martinelli coming off ahead of Saka again. Saka gets a knock, and now it looks like he's out for the weekend, or is he? He's 75% fit. This is on the manager again, Lee, isn't it?
I do believe so sometimes, and a lot of people turn around and go, "Oh, what if you come back and didn't win that game? Say it was 2-0 and he'd take him off and it's 2-2. Well, if you take him Martinelli off on the day, who was absolutely skinning their right back. So if you're prepared to take him off, why wasn't you prepared to take Saka off? The game was done then. I don't care what anybody says, and I know. It's a bit of a disrespect to the likes of people like Nelson on the bench. If you're 2-0 up against a poor side like that, why can't you give him minutes and more importantly, cut Saka's minutes down? I think that Mikel's got to manage that a little bit better. I don't know if you noticed it on the day, but when Martinelli came off, he was really annoyed that he was him, because when you're playing that well, you just want to carry on, don't you? I know, the manager will say the right things, well, I'm protecting you and everything like that. And, yeah, fair enough. But you're not protecting Saka. Why is he staying on? So I don't really get that. But in saying that, it looks like he got away with it again, Mikel. I keep telling you, he's a lucky manager. Whatever he does, if you're in a casino with him and he puts his money on the red, you make sure you follow him and put money on the red, But I think that Saka trained yesterday or today as well, so I think he'll be all right. But no, and at the end of it now, it's in the laps of Gareth after this. What sort of game time is he going to have against two teams that we've already qualified, by the way, haven't we? So I'll be bitterly disappointed if Declan Rice plays like both games and also him. So, but I think they're definitely whatever happens.
They all bloody play under Gareth Southgate, don't they?
Yeah, it'll be very nice. Listen, they've qualified, so these two games are nice to just, I think, to have a look at some other players and give some players some match time that they're not getting with their clubs. That's how I'd look at it. But I think with Saka, I think it's something that he's going to have to look at in the future just to keep him in game, especially when you're winning 3-0. 4-0 and he's still on there, there's always a danger that someone is going to just give him a little kick out and things like that. Because at the end of the day, Dan, as you see on Wednesday, the likes of the Sakas, the quality players, they can embarrass you a little bit, and we know what defenders like. They can have a little oh well, I'm not having none of that. Take this, you so and so. So we've got to be careful the way we manage him.
Interesting, Sean. Arsenal's injury problems aren't getting any much better than Tottenham's when it comes to the amount that we're getting. And it's always the same players.
Hang on. What? Wait, say that again. Arsenal's injury problems are not better than Tottenham's.
No, in terms of the amount that we're getting and the same players that we're getting. So we've got now Timber, Partey, Jesus, Saka's now a massive injury doubt. I feel like I've said that about 5-6 times. These players, those names are always injured, aren't they? So
does Saka just need a breather? Does Saka just need to pull out of the England squad and just get a month to have a month off?
He don't ever do that, though, Sean, does he? He's a maniac who loves playing football, and I think some of it is Mikel Arteta. Don't get me wrong. He could have bought him off the other night, but Saka, he loves playing football, doesn't he? So it's hard. It is hard. If you said to Saka, look, we want you to take a couple of weeks off. I know you love playing for England. That's a really selfish thing to do, isn't it, for Arsenal's point of view? But he might want to play for England, and I don't think he should because he's still trying to nurse his bloody injury that he seems to have forever. So that's what I mean. Obviously, Tottenham have got major problems in terms of their crisis. But
who else? Obviously, you got the long termers, but did you say Martinelli? Is he also a doubt again?
No, Saka, Odegaard, Partey, and Jesus.
There's a chance they could play though, Dan, isn't there? I never listen to what Arteta's got to say no more because it's all like.
Arteta's always playing the giving nothing away kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's all cloak and dagger stuff, and half of it, when it comes to it, I don't, it's just playing mind games and things like that. He's actually saying that Odegaard and Jesus might be fit and all that. Well, what will be, we'll end up with anything.
I don't believe that, Lee. Do you? I think they're
no. Well, it'd be crazy. But you're playing Burnley at home.
You shouldn't need your very.
You shouldn't need Jesus to play in that game, especially then you can turn around and go to Brazil. Well, he's not fit, so he ain't going. But if he plays tomorrow against Burnley, it means he's going to be travelling halfway around the world to play for Brazil. That ain't going to care about his minutes and whatever. So I think he'd be mad. They'd be mad to play.
From Mark, big up Mark, by the way. This is a great comment. So Reece James has turned down a call up because he's not ready. So Saka should do the same. I actually agree with that. I think he should. If it gets because I bet Saka will probably play tomorrow, Lee. Do you know what I mean?
There's nothing on the line for England, right? First of all, England's got Southgate's got a never-ending stream of people that want to play. But I get it from a personal perspective, I don't want someone else to play in front of me in case they do really well and they take my spot. Ultimately, Southgate knows his best 11. He knows who he's going to be picking and playing in the Euros, and there's nothing on the line in terms of this next couple of games, the 3 games that we got to play. So for me, I don't see the risk in players just seeing the wood for the trees a little bit and zooming out and kind of going, who pays your wages? Where's the where's the risk? Am I really going to is there any downside here to saying to Gareth Southgate, can I just have a couple of weeks off on this one? Because it ultimately could it could behoove Gareth Southgate in the long run if Saka is never given the breather that he needs to get that injury out of the way, and not just Saka but other players as well.
Yeah.
Then you might end up having an not just an injured but an exhausted version of those players come the tournament in the summer anyway, right? So
yeah.
Everybody done that, Sean. Everybody would be there'd be no international. So listen, I think he'd go, and it just got to be sensible with him, play 1 out of the 2 games.
Yeah, I think that's what we're all hoping. Looking at that Arsenal team then, Lee, what you're doing, because the team knows it's going to be interesting at the weekend against Burnley. There's a few players out for Arsenal. What's your team?
Well, my team is Ramsdale in goal. I think it's time for him to have a little go now, just a nice little home game against Burnley. Ray had done nothing wrong on Wednesday, and I think Ramsdale probably should have played in that one, and Ray against Burnley, that'd have been my option. Just give it a little bit of a rotate. He won't. He'll go with Raya, but I think that's what I will go with. I played Ben White because Ben White's not got international football now, so that's a give me for me there. I wouldn't risk Tomiyasu if he's picked up a little strain and all that. Tell Japan that he's not quite fit now. I'd leave him out. I'd play Shinchenko because I thought he'd done well when he come on.
Yeah.
2 at the back. I wouldn't be surprised if he left out one of them and played Kivior. I wouldn't be surprised, but I would still go with my main back 2. Same midfield for me. I know people are saying about Vieira coming in there, but Jorginho, Rice, and Havertz, and the same front 3 as Wednesday as well. I think that Trossard deserves another go. Scored, so I'll go with him there. Saka on the right if he's fit. If he's not fit, then I'd like to see Nelson in there instead of going Trossard and bringing in Eddie. But that's what I would do. Hopefully Eddie will be on the bench to come on if things are not going right, and maybe a couple of others, but Odegaard maybe on the bench, but I wouldn't risk him.
Interesting. Big up James for the super chat. He says Arteta needs to be careful. He's a young, promising player like Saka. This is a mistake that my team, he's an Everton fan, made with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Kept playing him, hurt, injured, rush back, repeat.
Yeah,
it's very, very true.
Back to his best now, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he absolutely. And
look at Everton; they've started to get results.
They have actually, and he's massively important, isn't he?
Massively.
He's one of their best. Let me quickly ask you, Lee, if Saka is out, who plays on the right-hand side? Do we go
I'll go with Nelson. I I think that he'd probably, if he is out and Eddie's fit, I think he'd probably go Trossard over there and Eddie down the middle. I wouldn't be against that if that was the case, but I think that the last couple, like Wednesday night, I like what Trossard done there, and deserves another go up there. I think that would be the way to go. You could actually bring in Vieira into Havertz's position and move Havertz up front. That would be another option to see what Vieira could do, or even play Vieira out there. But, my argument is you sign Reece Nelson on a big contract, or re-signed him, give him a go, and see what he can do. So, but it'd be interesting to see what they're. The one player that has got to play in this game is Kai Havertz. He's got to play in this game because he has got better in the last couple of games.
I thought he was really good on midweek. I know he missed a sitter.
Yeah, the last 2 games. Involved. Yeah, the last 2 games he's done better. I know, that will set off people, but we need a little bit better. But this is a game now where he comes in and he has to do something. Then he has to score.
Is he a confidence player? Is he someone that when things are going right, he can put together a run, or is he someone that
I haven't seen that at all?
We don't know.
Okay,
I haven't seen a run yet. The problem with Havertz at the moment is any position I'm seeing him in, I'm seeing a very similar performance. People are saying to me, "Oh, he's much better when he's up top and all this, and he's creating more and he's linking it." I don't see it personally. A lot of people have said it's like leaps and bounds. I don't see it. I don't think he's doing much different in any of the positions. I think with Kai Havertz, for me, he's a player that you don't start and you bring on for 25 minutes in the area, like we did against Man City, and he can create something for you. And I think that's what he's going to have to be doing now as a nuisance type player. Because if you ask me now, I'd rather see him as the number 9, like that comes on as a number 9. If he's starting, I'd rather probably see him as a number 9, because I think in the midfield he stands there a bit of a statue, gets in the way, can't really see what much he's doing. You know, like, I don't know if you saw Red Ken the other day in the chat, Lee, saying, he's like a player who's been given, he's now he's collected so many nectar points that he's been given an Arsenal shirt to wear for the night. I just thought it was funny, because I thought, he's just a little bit out there, but don't quite know what he's doing. I'll give him his due. He works hard in terms of he's never standing there for 90 minutes just waiting for the ball. He will go and move himself about, but I don't see enough for me. I don't see enough.
Can I ask a quick question, right? Because not to take this back to Tottenham, but all the players that we're linked with for January, most of the players we were linked with in the summer, there was this narrative, and I talk about it a lot, which is like Ange seems to want utility players, versatile players that can, that can do a little bit of both. You can shoehorn, you can put him in this role, or you can put him in that role, and I'm okay with it if the main position that you want him for, or the area that you want a certain player for, that this guy's good enough at that he levels up, at least levels up the bench. But if you're buying a jack of all trades but a master of none, then if the jack isn't really good enough to do what you want to do as a team anyway, then is it like, are you trying to solve for 4 problems when really you're not solving for any, whereas you might as well just solve for one by getting an expert? And the reason I ask that is because I don't know if, Kai Havertz, you guys are more familiar with him. So is he a jack of all trades that doesn't really level up any of your any position, or would you rather have someone that was a master of one than someone that can be shoehorned in?
Yeah, I think I would go with that as well, because then he ain't gonna, he does all right up front, he does all right in midfield, but I'd rather have someone that you knew was like and a little bit like these sort of players back in my day as well, that could play 2 or 3 positions. They could never nail down one position in the team. So when you look at Kai Havertz, if Arsenal to play a cup final, everybody's fit, I don't think he'd get in anybody's starting lineup.
Right.
Would you have him, Sean?
Kai Havertz?
Yeah.
No.
There you go.
No, I wouldn't. But what worries me, and again, like I've never seen the value in Kai Havertz personally. I've never thought he's particularly good, but I don't I never followed Chelsea closely enough to know whether there's little value adds that I miss when I watch the highlights or when I watch whatever. So, and I'll say the same about him at Arsenal. I hear every Chelsea fan in the community and every Arsenal fan speaking more about his weaknesses than about his strengths. And what worries me a little bit is that all I see from in the Tottenham side is that we're linked with this guy, Geerstruida, who can play right back, right-sided centre back, DM, left-sided centre back, or Lloyd Kelly, who's a left-sided centre back and also a left back. And I'm like, if that's like I talk about it all the time, if that's what we're going for, if it's versatile, if utility is what we want, then okay. But most of the examples that I can think of, and Kai Havertz is probably the loudest name in the pack, that utility basically means that you're not excellent at anything. You're just someone who's like okay at a lot of things. And I think you maybe can make space for 1 or 2 of those in your squad.
Yeah,
but you
I agree.
you shouldn't be spending 70 million pound, the lion's share of your budget, on a player that doesn't have a specific position that he's expert at.
Well, when we bought him, everyone thought, "Oh, this will be like a bit of a strange one, be interesting." We know he's going to be starting, must have a plan for him. And people will say, "Well, there is a plan, but he's got to give it time." I don't think there is a plan. I think Mikel Arteta thought that he could try to get a player that's versatile, that can play in a few positions, that might be able to take us forward with in our attacking options. And it ain't worked. He's tried him now in the attacking 8, in the number 10. He was playing towards the right at one stage in one of the games not long ago, and he's played him up top, and he hasn't done anything to impress me in any of those positions whatsoever. So sometimes you just got to say it how it is. It's that sometimes they don't work. We've had big signings that ain't worked before, right? A lot of big signings, in fact. Yeah, a lot of our big signings. When you look at Arsenal's top 10 top signings, there's a lot that you look at and go, cool, they ain't got many of these right, have they? Ain't got many of these right. Pepe, Havertz, Mustafi, all these are in the top. Like they're all like 35 plus. Do you know what I mean? And you wouldn't look at them and go, God, even you take it back, Lee, to like when we bought Jose Antonio Reyes. Bless him. I loved him. Unbelievable. But then he got homesick. It didn't really work out for him. And he was like a record signing at the time. Mesut Ozil, I know a lot of people love him, but I wouldn't put him as in one of the top 5 of the Emirates era either. Do you know what I mean? I think there's easily 5, 6, 7 ahead of him. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
You can go back to like the 70s with Malcolm McDonald. He was the record signing. Never,
don't always work, does it?
Never quite works, So, I think there's always a gamble on signings. Not always, but sometimes that they are. Listen, I think if Kai Havertz had come from Germany straight to Arsenal, I think there'd be a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? A little bit more like time given to him, but because he's come from Chelsea and whatever, like I think, and the price tag, I think I don't know. I'm not speaking. I'm probably speaking for myself more than anything. Like if we'd have got him from Chelsea for 30 million, and it was like I would have looked at that and said, I see the gamble. I see it as a why. But when you're spending 65 million, I don't think you should be gambling with 65 million.
No, me neither, mate. Me neither. I mean, when you look at it now, 65 million pounds. We're going into January, and people are saying we might be interested in Tony or Pedro Neto or Zubamendi or Douglas Luiz. We've got 65 million there that we've wasted that we could have put on one of those or a couple of those players, and we've put it on Kai Havertz that ain't really getting in this side or doing much with it. So I'm with you. Sean, I wanted to ask you this question in the chat, and I've lost it now. Where is it? Here it is. ELB. It says, Havertz, Jorginho and Eddie will be the downfall of Arteta come the end of the season, Dan. Now, I wanted to put that to you, Sean, because a lot of Arsenal fans are saying that these players just aren't good enough when you're going for a title in terms of cover, and the drop-off is just too much. And I agree. I have to say, I don't think that Manchester City have that drop-off in Doku and Kovacic and Mateus Nunes and Alvarez and these guys. I don't look at any of those players and think, oh dear, like they're going to miss those. That's a huge drop-off. It's definitely a drop-off, don't get me wrong. But it's not the amount of drop-off it is from Partey to Jorginho or Odegaard to Havertz or Jesus to Eddie, is it, Sean?
No, it's not, right? But I think as I don't know if I've said this before on your channel. I think the first time I was on, I spent a lot of time understanding the finances of football and the realities of the FFP, for example. If you look at most of the teams that are around our sort of level, we're bringing in Tottenham, Arsenal, United are a bit more, but you're bringing in sort of 400. Oh, sorry about that. We're bringing in
still there, mate. Go on.
something jumped up on my channel. You're bringing in something like between 400 and 600 million quid in revenue, right? And if your wage bill is about 50% of that, give or take, then you buy someone like Kai Havertz at 65 million quid. That's generally speaking about 15% of your annual revenue on what you can do. Manchester City have got a perfect system because of their multi-club ownership, because they got in and through the the ways that they can move numbers around and stuff. They have ways to be able to push the FFP out. And the same opportunities don't exist for everybody else. And so if Kai Havertz is going to cost you 15% of your annual revenue, if Kai Havertz is going to take up 60-70% of your annual budget, you can't have at this stage, unless you are absolutely pinpoint perfect with your identification of young talent, which no one is. I don't care which club you're looking at. You're always going to speculate. If you have to go to lower like to younger ages, to sort of distant leagues or whatever, and find the youngest things and try to find a way to make your player trading make ends meet. It's impossible to essentially get it right every time. And I think that most clubs need to shake hands with the fact that your drop off, unless you get it absolutely perfect, is never going to be, you're never going to have, or you shouldn't necessarily desire to have 25 or 24 class players, top tier players that can do it. You can get some, you can improve on your averages. You can find talent that you buy at 18 and you loan them out and they get it right. But ultimately, I just think that it's an implausible scenario unless you're someone that has owners that have set up multi-club ownership models and been doing it for years, where they can find the efficiencies and the economies of scale and their learnings from elsewhere. Arsenal aren't doing that. Tottenham aren't doing that. Liverpool aren't doing that. Chelsea are starting to do it, but it's too early in that kind of game to figure out whether they're right or wrong with their process. I think you guys have been fortunate in as much as your owners are willing to inject more capital than most owners are willing to do. But I think that, sorry, I'm rambling here a little bit, but people like Jorginho and Eddie Nketiah, did Nketiah come through your youth system?
Yeah.
Right, so I think that in terms of acknowledging or respecting that he is someone that stepped up from the youth system, I think that that's something that should be applauded rather than resented. Jorginho, I think, has came in at the time. I think that when you're looking at, like, is it enough to get you over the line? Is it enough to be a title challenger? I think unless you've got owners that are willing to do things outside of the football club, and that sort of project takes years to evolve and years to emerge. And even then, there's only one example of a multi-club ownership that's been absolutely pinpoint perfect, and it's the City Football Group. I could point to 777 partners. They've got a plethora of failures. You could point to the guys who run Bournemouth, who've got, there's so many examples of multi-club ownerships that don't work out. It's just like, it's a rarity. And so I think that sometimes when you're looking at and you're judging players that are in your second tier, like you're not your first teamers, but the guys on the bench, I think you have to shake hands with reality that there is going to be a drop off. And when the amount of money it costs to buy someone like Havertz is also something that's going to impede on your FFP feasibility, that it's just not easy. You're never going to have a situation where you're going to have a bench full of people that didn't cost you very much, that have actually leveled up, and means that the drop off from your first team to your bench is insignificant. I think that we all have to just recognize that Man City is the exception to the rule and not the kind of norm. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, listen, I think, you say I'm rambling a bit. Actually, I thought that was a good segment. I think
it's very interesting.
It's really interesting. And I think for me, from someone who, like yourself, who actually does get finance and looks into it, I can't sit there and lie to you. I don't. I literally have
I was interested.
I'm dyslexic with numbers, so I'm terrible. But when it comes to actually understanding the bit behind it, I think you're spot on there, Sean. Listen, Lee, I'll let you have the last say on this because I do want to close with predictions. But do you think that we'll go and dip into January, Lee? Do you think we have to dip into January if we want to go and win something?
Yeah, I do think that we're going to have to, but we might have to sell one or two. And that's where the Havertz one, it fascinates me a little bit more, that we couldn't buy Raya because of fair play, but we went and spent 65 million on Havertz, so that's when I'm saying that, it's a massive gamble that it's, could actually, if Havertz is not going to work, and at the moment it doesn't look like it's going to, that's going to hinder other signings. That means it makes it even worse. So, but I think Arsenal will go in there. And also, like, maybe with the fair play, it changes a little bit once you go into January, which it didn't in the summer. We'll have to wait and see. But I think Arsenal, I think in every window, I think if you're a top club, you've got to be looking to strengthen with one or two. I don't think we've done quite enough in the summer one. I think we're 2 players away, so we'll have to wait and see. But financial fair play might have something to do with that. But obviously by that time January comes around, we will know who we've got in the FA Cup, because that will be a bearing about the amount of games we're having, and we know where we are in the Champions League. So I do expect them to make 1 or 2 signings, definitely one anyway.
Well, would you guys just super quickly? Would you guys be given how close you are, how close you were last year, do you expect your owners to inject more money to be able to circumvent the FFP, at least in the short term, so that you can go and get a Tony because he's going to cost you 70 million? Or would you tolerate and accept the fact that, it is what it is, and if you want to get Tony, you have to sell these players, but these players are not easy to sell because the secondary market in Europe is broke. So, like, how much tolerance do you have for your owners that have already given you?
I'll come in after Lee on that. I'll come in after Lee.
Listen,
on that. I might be looking to him, but go on.
I would like us to just go out and spend, another £120 million on two midfield and a striker, say, for instance. Will that guarantee us to win the league? No, it won't. That's the problem that you got. Like, how much do you spend before you guarantee it, sort of thing. But I expect I'd be a little bit disappointed if they didn't do anything.
Right,
I think we should do everything we can to win a trophy, to win a title, or Champions League, and FA Cup, whatever it be. We have to win something this year, and I will be fine if we get to the end of the season and go, the Cronkies did everything they can to back that manager by providing him with a squad that was not left short. And at the moment, I think it's left short, and I actually think it's left short in more than one area. I think we're left short without it. If we lose Saliba, there's a massive drop off. If we lose Partey, Rice, Saka, and Jesus, the players just aren't there, Sean. So we've got 4 or 5 positions. Now, I'm not saying go and get 4 or 5 players in January because we should have done more in the summer. But I think if there's an opportunity to get Tony and Douglas Luiz, let's say, and we don't do it, I think that's poor on the ownership because for me, they've not had the ambition to win. They've just had the wait till next summer then. Wait till next year.
You're starting to bridge that gap then from being a club that's run sustainably into a credit card lifestyle entity. And you lose that kind of moral high ground a little bit.
I think we already have, Sean. I think we already are that. I think we already are that. We've spent more money in the last 5 years in Man City, you know that.
Yeah.
We've spent more money in the last 10 years in Real
Madrid.
So, I look at that and I think a lot of people say, Arsenal, I'd hate to be run like City, hate to be run like Chelsea. We are.
You're getting there. You're getting there just on a smaller scale.
Because we are, mate. We already are. And this is what I don't get. People will say to me, oh, well, why do you want to be run like Chelsea and Man City? I don't care. If that is how you keep up with competition, that's how you win, let's do it. Because we're supposed to be one of the biggest clubs in England. So I'll accept that we are spending money, that we are in that bracket if you want. But we actually have spent more money. It's only Man United and Chelsea that have spent more than Arsenal since Arteta's taken over. So you can't
Man
say,
Man United are absolutely broke. Like, absolutely.
And Chelsea are a mess as well. Yeah.
And Chelsea are a credit card lifestyle. Man City have been a credit card lifestyle, but they got ahead of the situation. They built all these things in the background that are now supplying value. You really look around and you think, if Arsenal are already bridging that gap, then to a degree, of the teams that are left that are something like in the conversation, Liverpool are probably the only one that you can look at with the admiration of organic competence. Tottenham to a degree, but we're not even competing really. So, yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame that it's got to that point that the only way that you can win is with a credit card, and I think that's it's an indictment on what's happened to the sport of football. Personally,
it's saying that now you're up against Man City, which is a tough one. But I will say this with Man City: they've bought like a couple of players this season that are not massively out of the reach of the Arsenal's, Liverpool's, and Tottenham's, and they've come in and strengthened their team. So, if you recruit right, they're not necessarily like that can be the thing for you. Like, I think it comes down. I think James said it in there. Like, it's more about quality than quantity. I think that Arsenal probably, like, you're not going to get 25. I agree with that, 25 top players. But I think what you need is 15, 16. I think at the moment Arsenal got 13, 14. You know what I mean? But we need to have that up to 15, 16.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we might even need towards 18. If I'm honest.
Maybe with our injury record, Dan, you're probably right. Like, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, this one with Partey, for instance, is something that we've always known could happen, and they've not addressed it. And we've now gone, virtually the whole season. So from August to January without him, and that is.
Are you going to be able to sell him and get good money though? Does he still
I,
have?
I,
not
any-
now.
I think they're selling, but I don't think about good money. And at the end of the day, Sean, what's going to happen? I can see it happening now. Is that he'll get fit in January and he'll be off to the African nations. So like,
Yeah,
you know, so it'll be another
Yeah,
month.
yeah.
So you know, that's me done with it. If that happens, you know, and if Arsenal don't sell and don't replace in January, that's where I'll be angry, because that should have been sorted out a year ago.
I think if we can get some Saudi money and replace him, even if it is Douglas Luiz or Zubamendi that we're linked with, I'll be all right with that, because we don't see the player anyway. He's top quality.
He's
If I
top
knew
quality,
that
but
Partey was coming back in January and was going to be fit till the end of the season, I wouldn't sell him. But
how
if
much will you get?
can
How much will you get for him? Who's going to take
25
him?
million?
25,
Something like
25,
25 million, probably.
which is a shocker, really, because he's world class.
Yeah, he is,
On his day, he's world class. There's no two ways about it.
Just injuries. Injuries.
But he's never
Smith Rowe
around.
was another one. Smith Rowe, you know, how much would he have been a couple of years ago? Would have been talking on ridiculous money, but he's not. We could probably be like, we get 40 million for him now because he ain't fit, you know. So yeah, it's a tough one. Anyway, let's close on predictions. Sean, what are you going for Arsenal Burnley, mate? What do you reckon?
3-0, maybe 4-0. I don't see you having any issues. You know, Burnley haven't learned their lesson around how to approach games. They're still sticking to their philosophy and stuff. And you know, I think there's 3 worse teams than them, so I think they'll be okay this season. But I think that tomorrow's going to be. Is it tomorrow or Sunday? I think they're going to. Tomorrow. I think they're going to. I think you guys are going to. Easy points. 3-4-0. 3-0.
Yeah, I agree. I've gone 3-0. Lee, what you saying, bro?
I've gone bolder than that. I've gone for 4.
Okay.
4-1 or 4-0? You gone
4-0.
Okay,
Clean sheet.
Cool. Listen, I hope we are right, and I hope that it's a comfortable one. And then, of course, it's an international break. So make sure that you stay tuned. Literally, I'm on in another 10 minutes or so. We've got the other guys coming on talking all things football and all things Premier League. Sean, how can people follow you, bro?
Yeah, Spurs Talk Show. If you're interested in Tottenham stuff, I'm guessing the audience might not be, but if not, Spurs Talk Show, then Henry, who should have been here, and I are doing. We've got a channel for all things football, and it's called Shameless Football. So if you type into YouTube that, we'd love the support. It's a new channel. We've only got like 1,500 subscribers, whatever. But yeah, Shameless or Spurs Talk Show. Appreciate you for having me, guys.
No, always, man. Big up for coming on. Make sure you go follow Lee Judges as well on socials, and of course Lee Judges TV. Well, you'll see us both back on there soon, because the tech issues are going to be finishing soon, and we'll be able to get back on there. So we shall look forward to that. Make sure you do us a favour, like, subscribe, stay put, because obviously we are going to be on straight up at 6:30. So make sure you stay here, and we'll see you soon. Take it easy, guys. Laters.